Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we're going to be looking at ideation and decision making. So I'm going to be talking about all the stuff that went into creating this image that you see here on the screen. It's fan art of Zoro from One Piece. I've been watching quite a bit of One Piece recently, so I decided to create some fan art, but also just get back into sketching from reference, sketching partially from imagination as well, and I guess just creating art with more of like a whimsical feel, because that was what a lot of my old art kind of looked like back in the day. But yeah, I'm going to be talking about all the stuff that went into creating this. Step one is to have a rough idea of what you want to create, and then also to gather reference that's similar to what you kind of want. You don't always have to have a super clear idea of what you want, but even just the vaguest idea helps. So I had this idea of Zoro in like a seated position, relaxing beside the ocean, and maybe he was giving like a side-eye look, which, you know, I changed it in the final image, but having a rough idea of what you want will help you gather the reference that you need to create the piece of artwork that you want to create. Originally it was going to be two characters, so maybe Luffy and Zoro, and I played around with like a few different compositions and things. But yeah, first of all, it's reference gathering. That's the most important thing. Try and capture the mood, the feeling, and with your own thoughts, try and ask yourself, what is it about the references that you like? So in this one, I really like the aggression, I really like the menacing look. And this one, I really like the menacing look as well. It also looks like a stretch that's preparing someone to get ready for a fight. And so, because initially I was gonna do two characters, I was gonna do Luffy and Zoro. I had these ones which were more like boxing ones for Luffy, where maybe he was stretching and getting ready for a fight, and then I had different sword kind of poses for Zoro. However, I did end up just going with the relaxed look and having Zoro sitting alongside the beach. And then for me, because sunset is my favorite time of day, especially when it comes to colors, because you've got the bright oranges, you've got like the pinks and the purplish hues. I decided to set it at sunset, so I've got these different images of skies at sunset to help me with reference when it comes to the background. So yeah, reference is definitely a key part of what goes into making up your image. And then yeah, let's get into the piece. So after you've got a rough idea, you've got reference, you're gonna start looking at the sketching phase or the ideation phase. So after you've got your reference, you'll start looking at ideation. You'll start sketching different things out. So you can see here, I'm sketching the sword pose that I had. I had the stretching pose and kind of designing Luffy's character over the top. I had this kind of pose here, trying to think about composition. Maybe the sword leads the eye in some way. Yeah, I sketched Luffy's pose. And it's really difficult, like if you don't have the anatomical knowledge and the different basic structures that you can use to design a body, it is really difficult to do this stuff. So if you do struggle with this stuff, go back to the basics and then return back to this and, you know, try and sketch out some ideas yourself. And just try and work alongside the reference and use the reference to sketch stuff out. So we had this one where I had this idea of Luffy maybe eating a piece of meat and Zoro drinking sake. And nothing actually worked out on this day. But yeah, all of this stuff will actually inform the decisions you make next. Tried to draw a box, tried to sketch Zoro in and Luffy in his pose. Didn't like that in the end. This was... wait, where is it? No, it goes by too fast. This was probably Luffy pointing across the ocean and saying look, and then maybe I'd have a Zoro crouching down and looking as well. And then finally I kind of settled on this pose. I'll show you the reference for it. Yeah, finally I kind of settled on this pose here. In the end. Because it felt strong, partially intimidating, but also serene as well. And it just felt like a good pose for Zoro. And I might have sketched Luffy, tried to sketch Luffy further on, but I just decided it was better as a one person or one character piece. So you can see, starting to think composition. I'm angling the sword, using the edges of that bandana to point back into the sword, and the swords are pointing back to the character. Shaping the clouds in a way in which they point back into the character. And I had this idea of maybe putting a bird as like a mini version of Zoro with like a scar going through the eye, but I decided to scrap that. I won't talk about painting as much, but like there are two ways that I go about painting sometimes. Sometimes it's grabbing the reference image using the smudge tool and smudging it out, and then trying to use those to create shapes. Or you can just put in multiple gradients and start to get somewhere with that. But yeah, that's pretty much the decision making that I used to create this image. And then finally we'll talk composition, because this episode won't be on painting but more just decision making. So let's talk composition. So composition wise, in this image I was constantly trying to think of leading everything back into the character. So you've got the clouds that are pointing back into the face. Once you hit the face, that's kind of one kind of point of reference, or one of the areas of interest. As you hit the face, you kind of look down and you can see the contrast between the light side of the arm and the shadow side of the arm, and that will point you all the way down to the sword. Sword and the hand where you have the light shining through and it's red. That's another area of interest. The light will lead you down to the foot. You can follow the leg background back into the image, and that will lead you, it could lead you up here, it could lead you across to this rock where you've got the light here. And you'll then follow the arm coming back round into, you know, a third point of interest. Or maybe you'd think a point of interest was here. But in my compositions, I always like to think of this triangle of interest. So whenever I say triangle of interest, it will be 3 points of interest in a piece that I'll really focus on. So here it was the face, the hand and the sword, and the hand next to the hand that's on the rocks, and that will create a triangle of interest. In this composition, I would describe it as like an L composition, because it's containing all the interest or all the action in this like L box. I guess you could potentially extend this L to kind of like this, so you've got the point of interest in the box. But yeah, I would describe this as an L composition. There's nothing happening here, nothing really happening here. All the interest is pointed into this box, and everything in the image, whether it's the clouds, the sword, the light on the sword, the shadow here, it's all trying to keep your interest in this area here. And so that was kind of my thoughts for composition. And whenever I go about painting, I try and think about ways in which that I can enhance the composition and lead the eye. So that's definitely something that you can incorporate into your own paintings. But hopefully all that helps. Just to recover all the things that we've spoken about. Whenever you're creating a piece, from imagination, part reference, could be any kind of anime piece, have some kind of idea in mind of what you want to create. Gather reference images that assist that. In the sketching phase, try and sketch out different ideas. Don't be dismayed if it doesn't work on the first day. If it doesn't work on the first day and you're really struggling, go to bed, take a rest, do something else, come back to it the next day, and you'll come back to it with a fresh mind and a fresh perspective. Choose one kind of image. It should be the image that you feel works the best. And then play around with composition while sketching. Think about ways in which you can assist the image while sketching, and then when in the painting phase, do things that try and enhance that. So the lighting on the arm, the lighting on the sword kind of leading the eye. Think about contrast. So even here, let me just create a new layer. We've got all this dark, then we've got this pocket of light, got all this dark, and we've got pocket of light. I'm constantly also thinking about contrast while I'm painting as well, which helps it look visually appealing. And then finally, in the painting phase, just reevaluate the composition. Check if all your 3 points of interest are working, and check if the image is reading well as well. Does it give off the impression that you want? Zoom out. Does it look clear from a zoomed out angle? And yeah, all of that will assist you in creating the artwork that you want to create. Hopefully that helps. I'll see you in the next video.